I had no idea how insidious codependence was until I started figuring out that it's what creates a people pleaser.
You're listening to the Science and Spirit of Happy podcast, where we discuss the rational, strategic, and psychological methods, but also the deeper reasons and spiritual philosophy behind being happy down to the soul. Happiness isn't just hedonism. It's not even solely personal. Getting happy dramatically increases your effectiveness in every area, from business and finance to relationships. When we align with our own personal version of ideal, we end up not just happier, but healthier, more whole, more successful and richer, but even loving and loved. It's my opinion that getting happy for yourself is the absolute best way to serve the people in your life. I'm your host, Laura Lee Bowers, master healer and academic researcher, and this is another episode diving into the science and spirit of happy, a logical path to soul.
G'day, y'all! Welcome back! Today we are talking about people-pleasing and codependence, where it comes from, what it looks like, might not be what you think it looks like, and how to get rid of it. Full disclosure, I am a recovering people pleaser. My name is Laura Lee, and I am a recovering people pleaser. And right now I actually have 3 people who I see on a regular basis in my life that are quite moody. They're just moody kind of people. And, before now, I've never actually known a moody person. And it's not because I never had moody people in my life or around me, but previously I wouldn't have known that they're just, moody. I would only think that their bad mood was some kind of reflection of something about me, something that I did. So I would always be looking for what I did that made them in a bad mood, or why they didn't like me, why they didn't like me today. So I am so much more available to actually be a good friend, to, be kind, to be supportive when I am not thinking that their stuff is my stuff. So this is like where people pleasing comes from. It's like trying to get a sense of balance by keeping everyone around you in a certain kind of equilibrium. Well, we're going to discuss that. But just briefly, one of the people that is in my life who's moody, I've actually known them for 15 years. She's a professional that I go to see on a regular basis. She's exceptional at her job. Previously, she was in a relationship for a decade that I'd hear things off the cuff about that didn't really sound like love to me. Nothing too bad. It just didn't sound like, really being in love. And not knowing anything about relationships, I just kind of second guessed myself, saying that maybe this is how relationships work, long term. But they eventually broke up. So my intuition was right. And now I know that her partner that she's been with for a few years makes her so happy, and she's so in love because I can see it, right? And she's so happy and alive and in peace when he's around. And that's really the beauty of being authentic, is that people really know where you're at. And when we're able to really be present for somebody's authenticity, then we can really see them, we can really we can share their joys. we can help them shoulder their burdens, and they us. This is really where relationships are formed. But people pleasers have been taught that in order to be accepted or to be okay, they need to shoulder the burden of whatever, everybody else's emotional reality, right? This equates control. This equates having to be, or seeking to be, having the responsibility of being in control of how other people feel, being in control of their external environment. Now, human nature says that you need to be in charge of your internal environment within a community, right? Like, you can't control somebody else's emotional state. All you can do is move through your life, recognizing, being aware, managing your own internal environment, right? And this is where our equilibrium should come from. So we all have this sort of, it's kind of like a buoy on the water, where there's like an equilibrium that is in the center of us, that although, we move around, things move us, and we're on the water, we're constantly in flow. There's this kind of weighted equilibrium where you're always coming back to center. So people push, and it should move you, People push with their kind of flow, with their equilibrium, with their gravitational pull, and we compromise. We find middle points of balance with them because it's who we are as a species. It's what we do. We cooperate. We're communal. So the pushing and the pulling, it's natural and it's copacetic. And when people push too much, most people, they just step out of the way. As they would some falling rocks or a burden that is too heavy for them, they just step out of the way, right? But when this happens in childhood, when you are forming, when you are totally receptive and also dependent, when we are dependent and we are pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and the burden is put on us and put on us and put on us, we learn to externalize our balance point. We learn to seek the equilibrium by mitigating the pushing. So instead of being pushed and feeling like that was too far, I'm going to step out of the way, we get pushed and we want to push back to keep that person in their equilibrium so that we can basically just emotionally exist and survive and not be damaged, right? Because the pushing, people wouldn't move out of the way if the pushing wasn't damaging when it's too hard. People pleasing is bending too much and too far out of balance, seeking the equilibrium outside of you. And people pleasers can often be quite mean or rude or unbending to, normal people. If you've ever met somebody with social anxiety, the chance that they're going to be rude is really good. And even though they're worried about what other people think, they're not shaped to the form of somebody just allowing them to be themselves. So the push and the pull, it's so extreme and it's so external that when somebody isn't pushing hard, they are not meeting them. So, my husband was around abusers all his life, and they pushed and they pushed and they pushed and they pushed him. And when he would come up against an abuser, he would just fly into there's just this brilliant kind of managerial, like thinking on his feet, creative thinking, just managing, crazy abusive people in such a uncanny way. But with me, for a long time, for the most part of our relationship, it's only really stopped recently, when I've really stopped and stood up for myself, absolutely, after we had a child. He bullied me for years, and he had so many abusers in his life, and these abusers, when he started standing up for himself, because I mean, our relationship wasn't like absolutely horrible. He wasn't like, like, it didn't like change overnight. He actually decided to be with me because he decided that he was going to be with somebody who wasn't pushing him like this. He didn't want to be, this people pleasing kind of externally balanced person. He was already trying to escape the whole reality when I met him. And when I gave him an out, he took it. And so like we've been growing the entire time. And when he went back to, be, around these abusers, they actually thought that him standing up for himself and him like having a sense of balance in himself and a sense of like equilibrium in like that is like internal and a sense of like integrity and values and stuff, they actually thought that that was me manipulating him. So I have been accused of forcing him and making him into this person who was no longer the person that they wanted him to be. And the reality was, because I wasn't an abuser, because I didn't push him the way that they did, he was actually quite inflexible with me. And it was very, it was actually like next to impossible to get him to do anything that he didn't want to do, even if it was for me, etc., because he had no idea how to compromise. And this is probably the most insidious part of people pleasing. It's not that, this person wants everybody to be happy. Like everybody wants everybody to be happy. That's just who we are. It's that this weird balancing act means that they don't know how to be in balance with everyone else. So it's not just that they, attract more abusers. It's that they will have the skills to adapt to that situation. And, trauma repeats itself. We know that. I've talked about this a bit before, but, even without any of that repetition or pattern or cyclical, whatever, just lacking the skills to actually take up space, that robs a people pleaser or robs a person who's become a people pleaser. We should probably like exonerate, the people pleasers from that label. The people who have been thrown out of balance to seek, have been trained to people please instead of find balance within themselves. It's extraordinarily difficult to fit into any other situation that is not providing the space for that person to overextend themselves. Essentially, the act of people pleasing comes from being off balance within yourself. You're supposed to be in balance and have a midway point within yourself. I've mentioned that. Like, this is, how you feel. Getting back to talking about those moody people, like that's actually like they're bobbing around based on how they feel. Like being moody doesn't mean that you're off balance. It might just mean that your frame of movement is maybe larger or moves faster than other people. But your feelings actually, like, they dictate to you what is good for you. This is your deciphering. Your feelings are kind of your compass for what you should or shouldn't be doing. We're naturally inclined to get along and cooperate because we want the people around us to be happy. So when childhood has thrown us out of balance, right? When we have been told, shown, forced, molded to focus on the exterior, focus on how other people are feeling. When we have been told that, we're not good enough. We've been shown that we're not good enough on our own. We have to do something. We have to manage other people's expectations. When we experience being shown that we're wrong, being told we're wrong, that we don't have the right to be, to take up space. Kids have an inherent sense of justice, even babies, toddlers for sure, but even babies, they have a sense of what's fair and what's not. And them experiencing fairness is actually that shapes them, that starts to shape how they will relate in the world. When we don't have that right to take up space, to have our sense of justice be, acknowledged, when we're shown and we're told and we're taught that we are to blame for someone's bad mood, it's unnatural. It's unnatural. I think I discussed why abusers are abusers in the fighting episode. And that is because abusers actually feel like someone has attacked them when they feel vulnerable. So they think that their abuse is actually in self-defense. So a parent who thinks that, the child has actually done something wrong when they feel vulnerability. And there are so many feelings that can make someone feel vulnerable, especially somebody who is not comfortable with vulnerability of any sort. I mean, the list of things that could make someone like that feel vulnerable it's never ending. So when a parent who is an abuser is made to feel vulnerable by something the child did, even the child could be upset, and the parent sees that as an attack on their parenting skills, like the vulnerability that, like, oh, maybe I'm not making my child happy or anything like that. Like, that's a vulnerability. Just questioning whether you're doing the right thing or something like that could send a parent into, like, how dare you, feeling like they were attacked by the kid doing, something that was totally natural and totally them, by, a kid being moody, right? That sense of vulnerability. Did I do something to an abuser turns into you did something to me. And I don't really want to dive too deep into that because we could go on and on and on and on and on forever. But what happens to the child is they start to seek balance externally, right? Because we require the balance. So the child is being told, you made me feel this way. How dare you make me feel this way? You are bad because you made me feel this way. We start to try and manage the parent's emotions. We start to seek the balance externally. We overextend, and then it creates a wobble, which means we clap back, we can't stay balanced, and we're constantly seeking. So this means that we never get peace. And it's so insidious in so many ways. But what it comes from is a kind of codependence, or it's not even a kind of codependence. It comes from codependence. this situation that I'm talking about where, an abuser feels vulnerable and then like defends against the perceived attack that's made them feel vulnerable as the person's just doing the person, and they have a vulnerable feeling and they're like, you did this to me. You are being abusive to me because I feel vulnerable. This is codependence. Like somebody not being able to have their own emotions is codependence. And I didn't know that codependence was so destructive. Full disclosure here, I actually saw this on TikTok, but it was from a psychologist who has a PhD and specializes in the dynamics of codependent families, right? And when they described to me what they described in their TikTok, all of the elements, the major elements of a codependent family, I could not believe what I was hearing. I was hearing, some of the most insidious mental illness, like the signs of just like seriously abusive behavior, because no one can be themselves. No one can be themselves in a codependent family, in a codependent relationship. No one's allowed to win. So everybody's always pulling each other down because nobody can shine. Everything is us, 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 us. The codependent family also strives to have this image of being a good family. Therefore, so nobody's allowed to be bad. Like the family has to always come across as being a certain way, because I think the codependence must extend out to like the external environment too. The codependent members of the family, the heads of the family that are creating the codependent family, they're also codependent on what other people think of them. So it's like a constant manipulation, constantly manipulating, gaslighting, oppressing, repressing. Nothing is straightforward. Nothing is honest. Honesty requires independence. Genuine authenticity requires independence. And codependent people try to control what everyone thinks. I can tell you from being the object of people who are codependent and definitely suffer with these kind of, mental illness related abusive traits. There is nothing that feels worse than the feeling of not being able to just get up and do your life. Like not being able to just get up and go throughout your day. Somebody trying to like constantly get inside your head and control how you are seeing them. There is nothing more disrespectful and intrusive and just intolerable than somebody just constantly pushing and putting pressure on you to think a certain way and to see things a certain way, and that they're dependent on it, that their internal balance is pushed outwards onto you, and you need to make them feel like they're right. Oh my gosh, it is intolerable. You do that to a child and it bloody well crushes them. It crushes them. And they turn into somebody who is constantly trying to control the environment around them so that they don't get hurt anymore. And the irony is that people pleasing pleases no one. It's a coping mechanism. It's a coping mechanism that supports abusers, but it helps victims survive. I didn't realize I would get this emotional talking about this. It's just that somebody that I love very much has gone through this, and I have gone through it with him as well. And if I can provide just the sense of support that like I see you to anybody out there, then I'm happy. I'm happy to share this. And I'm happy to own my story. And you should be too. And I really, if you have been suffering from this, if you have been suffering being molded into people-pleasing shapes, and you're ready to get over it, you're ready to leave it behind, maybe instead of beating yourself up for all the ways that, you aren't being the person that you were born to be and that you truly are, maybe today you can just thank it. Thank you for keeping you safe. And know that no one wants you to try and please them, okay? Nobody wants you to try and please them. They just want you to be yourself. They just want to know you. And I'm sorry that you were raised around people who didn't want to know you. They just wanted you to help them cope through their totally toxic stuff. But you know what? Everybody else wants to know you. Everybody else wants to know you. And people pleasing is just one more way to avoid vulnerability. And although vulnerability can be excruciating for people who have had the rug pulled under them so many times, being children and being open, it's so necessary. And you're safe with the overwhelming majority of people. You're safe. And this is how we heal. And this is how we move forward. And this is how we create families that get to know each other. So, okay. I hope that isn't too much. And you know what? If it is, I don't care. Because this is the shape of me, and this is the balance. This is where I'm leaning towards today. This is my mood, and this is my story, and I thank you for listening to it, and I hope that it hit home in some way. Come back next time. We're talking about how to let these mofos that you don't need in your life, that have been pushing you out of balance, go. And also how to let pieces like this of yourself go too. I'll see you there. Good day, y'all.